So today, our presentation is going to be about these 3 young learners exams that are starters, movers, and flyers. So first of all, let's start with a little bit of background, okay? So remember that these exams are called young learners because they are directed to little kids. They will enable children to develop all the skills, right? Listening, writing, reading, and speaking through interactive, entertaining activities. In this way, they will provide a consistent and reliable measure on how well, these students perform, because the good thing about these exams is that they focus on what students can do instead of what they cannot do. So it is encouraging in that way, okay? They provide a lot of confidence to kids. And, I believe that if teachers really familiarize themselves with exams, they can make these preparation exam classes extremely joyful and enjoyable for the kids. So something that I will show you, it's the way that these exams are graded, right? They do not have like a number, they score 100, 120, 160 like other exams. Instead, they will celebrate their achievements through different shields. As you can see, the shields go from number 1 to number 5. A student that has gotten all the 5 shields, well, it means that that student has developed excellently in that area, right? They can have well, in the example, we can see that this student is stronger in his or her reading and writing abilities, and in listening and speaking, probably they perform well, but not as well as in reading and writing. These exams are designed for students that are between 7, it could be 6 as well, between 7 and 12 years of age. I say it could be 6 as well because it all depends, Something really important is that these students know how to read, not perfectly, but they can understand, and how to write, okay? This is why we generally, or Cambridge generally recommends that is between the ages of 7 and 12. The name of the exams are pre-A1 starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers. And you can see here that they are also aligned with the Cambridge English Scale, as well as the Common European Framework of Reference. So let's suppose in here, have you heard about Key for Schools, CAT exam? Have you heard about the CAT or the PET or the FCE?
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine, okay, this is PET. A B1 student will have to score between 140 and 160. We are working with kids. Our kids, pre-A1 starters, imagine, they need to score something between 80, it could be less than 80 or more than 80. It's pre-A1, so their knowledge is pretty basic, right? And then we go with A1, that is movers. Now here they have developed a little bit more, especially in vocabulary and grammar. And then A2, which is exactly the same score as the CAT exam. So they are exactly the same. What changes is the content, because of course in flyers they will have pictures. It will be prepared and tailored to suit children instead of teenagers. Kid is for teenagers and adults. So with this introduction, well, I can show you here. And these are the certifications that they will get. As I told you before, they are not going to receive a number like, oh, he scored 100. They are going to receive these shields that will show them which activities probably they will have to reinforce. Okay, somebody is connecting. All right, so here, let's go. Let me see who is connecting right now. Hi, Vanessa, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, welcome. Well, we just have 2 people for this presentation. The others haven't connected. Sometimes they start connecting, after 4 o'clock. But even if it's the 2 of you, Vanessa, please feel free. We have already started, but feel free to ask me any questions, and participate, because it's just 2 of you. You can either use the chat or just turn on your microphone and give me answers, like when I am kind of brainstorming ideas. So we are going to start with the first exam. The first exam is the pre-A1 starters, right? Now, probably we will use most of our time, even though this is the shortest of the others, right? We're going to focus the most on this one, because remember that this is the foundation. Cambridge exams are made in a way in which the activities are very similar in different levels, which means that my reading, probably in writing part one, it's going to be similar in starters, in movers, and in flyers. But what will change? What will change is the content. Because of course, you know, a student from pre-A1 starter won't have all the vocabulary and all the abilities of a flyers or of a movers student, but the strategies and the structures are pretty similar. So as you can see, the reading and writing for pre-A1 starters, it has a duration of 20 minutes and it's divided in 5 parts, okay? So for this kind of activity, right? So you guys will decide, I'm pretty sure that you are all working maybe with Cambridge materials that are tailored to preparing students to this kind of exams, but it is always important, you know, that as teachers, we have our own resources. So I will share with you different links that are the ones that I use. You can use those links, you know, for activities that you can project in your classrooms, or you can get inspiration from those activities and create handouts. Just copy those activities and create handouts that you can give to all your students in class. So very important, okay, for pre-A1 starters, vocabulary, use a lot of flashcards. At the end of each presentation for each level, I will share with you all the links that are necessary. You will find a bunch of material, believe me, it's gonna be impossible for you to use all the material during the whole cycle. And then you will find flashcards that are divided according to the level. You will also find a word list. So whenever you are preparing your students for the exam, use that word list, because for sure at some point in the exam they will find one of those words. Practice matching exercises, especially with pre-A1. Remember that even though these students already write and read, they are not as skillful as movers and flyers, and they probably tend to be slower. So it's better for them to practice matching. They will have a lot of matching exercises. They will also have to write, but most of the exercises at this level, it's about matching. And another important thing, encourage your students to use print script writing. Why? Because as I told you before, these students are not 100% prepared or ready to write in cursive or in any kind of joint tab writing. Therefore, it is better for them if they just use print script. It is clearer and it is better. That makes them also feel more confident to what they write, okay? And remind them to correct the spelling. Spelling is necessary, you know, in all the levels. And even though it might be difficult that you give them a word and they say like, oh, apple, A-P-P-L-E, they can do it, you know, little by little. A, P, they won't say double P at this level, but they will mention each letter. But it's necessary that they start practicing, okay? Because that's extremely important. So we're going to take a look at the first part of the reading and writing for pre-A1 starters. As you can see in this activity, they will have pictures and they will have a statement. These statements will be related to the picture. If the statement is related to the picture and is correct, for example, a nose, and this is a nose, then the students will have to tick. However, if it is incorrect, the students have to cross the box. Now, when you prepare your students for these activities, please introduce them to demonstrative pronouns. They need to know this is, these are, that is, those are. Even though they are not going to have that and those in the exam, it is necessary for them to learn the difference, right? When something is close and when something is far. And also, when you practice this, also try to teach them, even though they are very little, and they probably won't see a difference in pronunciation, try to extend a little bit more when you use these, right? So they know, okay, this one is a little bit longer than the other. One is this is, and the other is this is. So practice this. I have given here some ideas. You can take a look, or you can take a picture of these links. I will show you one. And then something that the students enjoy doing, right? Flashcards. Everyone loves working with flashcards. You can decide something that I would like to share with you right now. It's an activity that I use with my class. Let me see, where do I have this activity? activity. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so generally, you can have your physical flashcards, but you can also have, okay, starters. Here it is. Okay, so, all right. Please tell me if you can see what I'm sharing with you. Can you see the Quizlet page?
Yes.
Well, it's actually, it says Quizlet, right? I don't know at what point
Quizlet.
it changed the name. It was Quizlet for a long time, but Quizlet or Quizlet. Now, something good that you can do, you know, whenever you have time, you don't even need to create, because there are a bunch of teachers that have already created activities, and you can use the same links, you know, from these teachers and share with your students. So something that I do, right? Look, I was checking already. So I project this, okay, on my whiteboard. If you don't have a projector, well, you know, you can grab a big picture, or you can write a small flashcard, and then you show the pictures to them. And then ask them, what is this? And then what they will say, it's apple. That would be the answer for them, right? At that point, they are not going to make a structure of a sentence. They will just create apple. However, prompt them to give you, a long answer. This is an apple. Remember that today in class we are learning this and this, right? So what is this? This is an apple. Let's see if it's correct. And then the only thing you need to do is flip it over, right? You flip over the flashcard, and then you are going to have the answer. Oh, correct. Okay. Another activity that you can use also here, you know, by projecting the image or using a picture on the board, is that you will give your students some kind of a jumble or puzzle sentence, which means that you will cut every single part of the sentence. This is a banana. You just cut it. Maybe you can paste it on cardboard so it's kind of thicker. And then you can make them work in groups. You know, I divide my students in group of 5, other students here in group of 5, and I will give each of you the number of pieces that they need to make the different words. I know that we are going to be checking according to what we saw before, apple, bananas. These words belong to which lexical set? Hi, Alejandra, welcome. Oh, Alejandra, good to see you again. Oh, that's very nice. Alejandra, for some reason, it seems that students here, teachers are not really interested in preparing their students for young learners. They are more interested in preparing their students for main suite. But I'm really glad that you connected, Alejandra. So we are checking activities for pre-A1 starters, you know, to teach vocabulary. So remember, as always, feel free to participate. So as I was asking, right, we have already checked apple. We have already checked banana. When we talk about lexical sets, you know, these pictures belong to the groups of fruits. Very good. So that's something important when you plan your classes. Decide, okay, today we are going to be checking lexical sets about fruits. Tomorrow about vegetables. The next day about food in general, maybe fast food. And that way, you know, you are not, it's better, you know, that you separate the vocabulary, and then when they already have enough vocabulary, you start mixing. And then, okay, going back to the activities I was telling you. So put them in groups and then give them pieces, okay, for them to make the complete sentence, right? The group that completes the sentence, you know, this is a banana first. Maybe they can stick it on the board as well. You know, children love to run in the classroom. So something that I do is like the first person that has it, we have a representative per group. Please run to the whiteboard and stick it on the whiteboard. You can have already prepared, you know, like certain kind of maybe tape that you can put there, so the students just will stick the different parts of the sentence and they will enjoy it. Remember, the most important is that these kind of exams have a bunch of colorful and children-friendly resources that as a teacher, you don't have to worry about preparation. These are just ideas that I give you, but in the pages, you know, in the links that I will share with you after, you will see that you can find everything you need. But Quizlet, believe me, it has worked for me and for my students. And look, now we have carrots. So it means that we are mixing fruit and vegetables. Plural, right? Now they don't have to use this is, they have to use this art, okay? So like that, you can engage your students in this kind of activities. Remember, Pictionary, sentence puzzle, whatever it is you preferred, okay? I'm just giving you ideas here. Now, in topic number 2, your students need to start writing. Remember that in the first one was either a tick or a cross, no more. But now they will have to write. But what they will have to write is just no and yes, no more. Very easy, right? Now, the difficult part, the difficulty here, actually, it comes in the fact that if the students don't have vocabulary, this kind of activity and the others will be really challenging for them. So something that you have to do with them, review vocabulary, whether it is with flashcards. For this kind of activity, also introduce your students to typical action verbs. At this level, they need to know eating, swimming, running, sleeping, walking, going, doing. They need to know these activities. And why in ing? Because they need to practice present continuous in here. As you can see, the sentences, most of them are in present continuous. So a pre-A1 starter needs to have knowledge of this tense, all right? And they need to learn how to write as well. Ideally, they can write sentences as well, okay? Most importantly is that they learn to recognize. So something that I do with my students is charades. When I talk about charades, what comes to mind? What is this game, charades? This is something that you guys have played before. Charades. The charades is the type of game in which you are going to use gestures and movements, but no words. So you're gonna get one of the students, probably the funniest one, and then to that student, you will show a flashcard. What they have to do is they have to imitate. So for example, imagine if it's eating, probably the student is going to do something like this. Oh, okay, eating. And then I said, give the complete sentence. I am eating, or then I point to someone else. She is eating. We are eating, you see? So I teach the students before we play this charade game, different gestures, right? This one means I, this one means you, that one could be he or she, this one here is we, this one here is they, okay? So they already have an idea. Oh, my sentence will start with we. My sentence will start with I, right? And as I said, charades is extremely entertaining. So they don't have to learn just the action, but they also have to give you the whole sentence. Now, another thing that I use is, I always say that the beauty of using visual aids is that everything becomes easier to grasp. Why? Because with that picture, imagine, I haven't planned my class because, I don't know, I was very busy correcting exams. And the only thing that I have for my class and for this topic, okay, is this, the picture. This is enough. Why? Because with this picture, I can start brainstorming answers or ideas or eliciting answers about anything. I will show the picture to my students and I will ask them, are they home? Yes or no? Are they home? No, they are not home. Where are they? Oh, I think they are at the park or in the forest, right? So you see, I start brainstorming vocabulary and I didn't prepare anything. The only thing that I have is this picture. Now, important, right? They need to know vocabulary related to games. Again, we go back to the word list and the flashcards that you have in the link from the Cambridge page, okay? So ducks, I can see that there is a frog. Where is the frog? Also prepositions of place, right? The frog is on the rock, yes or no? There are 3 ducks in the pond, yes or no? No, teacher, there are just 2 ducks, you see? And in that way, I can start, eliciting answers from my students just by using these pictures. But charades is an excellent game. I have given you here 2 other links in which you can find activities for this topic. And now we're going to move to the next one, that is vocabulary. Now, spelling. As I told you before, even though these are pre-A1 starters, they need to know the alphabet. They need to know A, B, C. Excellent opportunity to play that song in the classroom. Excellent opportunity, to make them run in the class, looking for different letters in order to make a word. And for this activity, what you have to remind them is that the type of pictures that they will have in here, they are normally related. As we said before, lexical sets. These pictures that you have in here correspond to which lexical set? What have I taught my students previously? I have already taught them fruit and vegetables. Now I'm teaching them what? Look at that. We have a boat, we have a kite, we have a train, we have a robot, we have a lorry, and we have a helicopter. So what is this lexical set? Transportation.
Maybe toys.
Toys. Very good. Excellent. This is toys. Somebody else connected, Heidi or Heidi. Hi. Welcome to this presentation. Even though you're a little bit late, please, Heidi, feel free to ask me any questions if you have. Now, so I tell my students, okay, we are going to do a spelling practice. There are, what is something that they would love to play here? Treasure hunt. I don't know if you have played before in your classes, but remember that treasure hunt, and this is the kind of game that can be adapted for different students. In pre-A1 starters, they are not going to be able to read clues, but they are going to be able to find flashcards and look at pictures, right? Or maybe to follow instructions or arrows, right? So what I do for this treasure hunt is that I separate, consonants, vowels. Maybe I put they don't need to write with punctuation, but for example, for movers or flyers, I would include periods or commas. And then what they have to do is to go through the classroom, trying to get, the different letters they need in order to form a word. I can have representative per groups, because if it's all the classroom, it's going to be extremely messy. And then the first person that finds, just by separating consonants and vowels, they will know, oh, for the first one, for boat, I just need 2 consonants that are B and T, and the rest I'm going to run to the group of vowels. The first person who finds all the letters will be the winner, okay? So treasure hunt is an excellent activity for your students. Also tell them that for this kind of activity, something that they need to do is to count the dashes. Why? Because then sometimes imagine, they are not that experts, in spelling words or in writing. So they might miss or forget that they need to use all the letters. They need to use all the letters in the box. They sometimes don't do that. Remind them to count the dashes, because each dash corresponds to a letter. And another important thing, look at this. Now, even though at this stage, it's very early for the students to be familiarized with the difference between American and British English, it is necessary that you introduce them to that. But of course, they are not a main suite. They are not teenagers or adults. They are not getting prepared for PET or FCE, right? They are getting prepared for young learners exam. They don't need to know, oh, this is British or this is American. But something that you can do is when you introduce them to vocabulary, is telling them, okay, this is a truck, but also people call it a lorry. And then you start, what is the name of this one? Truck. And what is the other name? Lorry. And then you can also teach them different pronunciations. You grab the picture of a tomato and you say, well, I say tomato, but teacher, if you have a British teacher in your schools or any other person, there are actually Ecuadorian teachers who prefer to emulate a British accent, and that's perfect as well. So that teacher, he doesn't say tomato, he says tomato. Okay, so we are learning at that time, and they don't know what is the difference, right, between American or British. They just know that that specific picture will have 2 names and they will recognize it, right? So the typical ones, right? Fries and chips, lorry and truck, backpack, believe it or not, probably not at this level. They won't see, no, yes, at this level as well, because they will see it in the speaking. Backpack and rucksack. I have had, because I am an examiner as well, and I have seen that it's very difficult for some students that have just learned American English, that when they hear rucksack, they don't know what they're talking about. So teach them that, okay? Backpack, rucksack, any other that maybe you could use with them. Well, potato, that's another one, you know, potato or potato. Any others? Maybe you guys would like to help me with any others right now. Sorry?
Could be pants and trousers.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you because there's like a lot of noise. Can you
Yeah, I'm so
repeat,
sorry.
please?
Pants and trousers.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Heidi, for your example. That's another typical one. And thank you for reminding me because it had slipped my mind. So pants, okay, in American English, we say pants, but in British, they will say trousers, okay? So excellent activity also for reminding your students about the differences between these two different dialects, okay? So now we go with this is actually, one second, sorry. The next to the last part of the test. Now we start with close. And as we said before in other presentations, whenever you hear or you read the word close, remember this is an exercise in which you have to fill in the gaps. That's it. You have some type of multiple choice close, but sometimes you also have an open close. Open close, you don't have options, okay? Now for this activity, something that I do with my students is I just show the picture to them. That's it. Why? Because I want them to start using their creativity and telling me, what kind of information do you think you will find? So I start with the picture. Probably some students will not know, right, that is a lizard. They might say iguana, they might say dinosaur, they might say, I don't know, crocodile, whatever, right? But it doesn't matter, you know, remember, I said like, oh, very interesting. It looks like a crocodile, but it's not a crocodile. It is small. It's not an iguana. It's smaller than an iguana. Oh, this is a lizard, okay? So then after showing the picture, I show the title. Lizard, so they know, okay, this is the way that I write it. What kind of information do you think we will check about this lizard? Generally, you will talk about descriptions, right? Parts of the body. They need to know tail. A lot of students at this level don't remember the word tail. They are going to talk about legs, teeth, eyes, etc. And for this activity, even though they will just have to complete with 5 words, they will have an option of 8 words. Remind them that they just have to use 5. Once they use it, eliminate and always try to double check. Now, at this point, imagine your students need to be able to read. Very difficult for students that have problems reading in Spanish or in English, right? So you have to create activities in class in which you prompt them, you know, to read small things. Maybe you can start with signs. Maybe you can start with little instructions, post-its, okay? Read the activity, correct pronunciation. Immediately, correct pronunciation. Why? Because with kids, it's very easy. They absorb immediately the right pronunciation. It's more difficult with adults, right? So at the moment that you're one of your kids, you know, is making a mistake in pronunciation, correct it. Okay, let's do it, you know, in chorus. Okay, it's not tooth, it is tooth. Okay, we're gonna do that sound, right? And then I work on that sound. Now, here I have another activity that maybe you can see. Is it this one here? I don't know where my activity is. Let me show you. What can you see, guys? What can you see right now?
Part 4, multiple choice tools.
The part 4 that we were checking, that one. Okay, so I don't know what happened. You know, generally before my it's in here. Generally, before my presentations, I open all the links that I'm going to use and I separate everything. And then at the moment that I start sharing, for some reason, you know, nothing is in place. So that's such a bummer. Let me see. Okay, right now, what can you see?
Maybe.
The same.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, wait. Okay. Share.
Maybe
and right now?
No, it's the same. Maybe now.
Yeah. No, again.
A game? Very good. Yeah, this is the one that I wanted to show you. Now, Remember that I understand, that sometimes in the classroom we don't have a projector. If you have a projector, use the same activity. Use the same activity. Remember that you can use this activity and change it to whatever you want. You can choose the pictures. So in this kind of activity, because I think that your students are very young to start using their devices, maybe movers and flyers, probably they have cell phones. They could use their cell phones or their iPads, okay? So they already know what they have to use. You can read aloud, so then everybody listens to you, and then you say, I'm going to read first, and then you are going to help me with the other parts, right? Monkeys live, as I told you, see, it's typical. It's about verbs like live, eat, have, the verb to be, animals, maybe it's about different places, maybe it's about food as well. And then monkey lives in the trees with their family and friends. Monkeys are fun. They can run and jump with their long. Now take a look at the monkey. What part of their body is long? And then maybe they don't know the word tail, right? So maybe you can say, is it the ears? No. Is it the hands? No. Is it the tail? Oh, yeah, tail. And then you can write the word on the board, okay? And then you can choose, okay? You can see here. Okay, so we have tails, and then look, they can just match. And this is a really entertaining activity for them. They can help you. They can say, teacher Mimi, I want to use the mouse in the class. Okay, come help me. You're going to be my helper today, And then that way, you can even take have a record, okay, of the volunteers, of the students that help you all the time. So you are switching with other students at the same time. And another possibility is that you copy the same exercise and then you use post-its. I always work with post-its. I have my post-its everywhere, different shapes. And then on the post-it, I'm going to paste the pictures. And then I make them work in groups. They enjoy working in groups, okay? I make them work in groups and I say, what you have to do is just remove the post-it, from the side and then put it in the corresponding place. And then you have an activity that is going to be interactive, entertaining, and at the same time, your students will be working on vocabulary. And then at the end, they can read. After that, you can focus on pronunciation. You can focus on intonation a little bit as well. Remember that at that point, the most important is that they can produce, words and phrases more than long sentences. But if they can produce long sentences, then even better. Okay, so that is my idea for you. And finally, we go to the last part of the reading and writing for pre-A1 starters. Now, for this part of the test, everybody is back to the presentation, right? Yes? Or we continue in the game?
No.
No, presentation. Perfect. Very good. Thank you. So now, what are you going to have in here? And look, I have another link for another activity for you guys. So in here, you're going to have 3 pictures. All the pictures are related with different changes, okay? At this point, what the students need to do is to answer questions. Questions about who, what, where, when, how many. These are the typical question words, and these are the ones that you have to start using in your classes. Something that I use is that, okay, I know that I'm going to be using this probably on a Friday or on a Thursday or whenever we are preparing the students for this part of the test. So that week I'm going to be working on that, so they remember name of animals. I'm going to be talking about animals. This is the one that I have chosen. And then before we do the activities, I just tell them to look at the pictures and then ask them, right? Like, which animal is between the monkeys? Between. They need to know between. Which animal is on the hippo? Oh, on the hippo. So on. And what is the difference between on and over? And then they start, oh yeah, on is like this and over is like this. Ah, perfect. Very good. I can do exercises, to practice prepositions of place with flashcards on the board, or here using posters. I have included, links about the posters that Cambridge will provide for your classrooms. They are amazing. You can, I don't know, you can get them plotter, like very big for the whole classroom, and they are colorful and they have most of the vocabulary words that you will need for this stage. Then after, checking pictures, I go with the questions, right? So how many 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. So they know how many is for numbers. Where is the elephant? Okay, so I can see that the elephant is behind the tree. Now, they might say behind the hippo, and that would be acceptable as well, right? Even though there is a tree in the middle, they should talk about that, okay? Colors, they need to know all the colors. Now, don't go crazy with colors, because sometimes, we have the students that know fuchsia and turquoise, amazing if they know it, but in the exam, they are not going to have those colors, right? So just the typical colors, that they know all the 12 colors that come in the box. And that's how they have to do this activity. They have to complete with one word or a number. Now, very important, not just for this reading and writing, but also for listening and the other components. The students will say, okay, when it comes to numbers, okay, should I write the number like in number or in letters? It is better in numbers. Exactly. Are they going to be penalized if they don't write the letters? No, it's actually better. When I work with starters, I actually run them. I tell them, don't waste your time writing. You're going to write more things in the exam. So in that part with numbers, just write the numbers. They need to know, at this stage, numbers from 1 to 10. So if they can practice, writing exercises, that's perfect, but it's not necessary that they write the numbers, okay? They have a lot of problems with number 8. They have a lot of problems with number 5. 5 and 8, I think that they are the most challenging numbers for them. So try to work on that. But remind them that they don't need to write. At this point, they don't need to write the numbers. And with that, we have finished the reading and writing part of the young learners. And now we are moving to the listening, okay? Now, for the listening component, they're going to have 20 minutes and 4 parts. Now, what do you have to do? First important thing, and this is a reality, I know that it's difficult sometimes, because as teachers, we want our students to really understand, right, what our objectives are, what the main purpose of a lesson is. And we have the tendency to move to Spanish. Why? Because they feel more confident and they learn, they actually understand more in Spanish. But I tell you, believe me, don't do it. Don't do it, because if you speak Spanish with your students are going to get used to that. And they will say like, oh, the teacher understands what I want to say, so I'm not going to make the effort. No, teach them. With children, they don't even know where you come from. You can tell them, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. They are not going to question you. They are not going to be like, oh, I don't believe you. No, they will believe you. So it's really important from the first moment, little instructions: open the door, open your book, close this, maybe teach them any kind of formulaic expressions, right? They want to go to the bathroom. If you want to go to the bathroom, what do you have to say? If somebody sneezes, what do you have to say? Okay, thank you, please, all the time. Believe me, they will. Their memories, are like sponges that absorb everything. So make great use of that, and then just bombard them with instructions in English. That is going to be amazing for their listening abilities and also for their speaking abilities as well. So give instructions in English. We have already discuss the point of American and British. Tell them that sometimes they will listen to tomato, but sometimes they will listen to tomato, and sometimes they will listen to pants, and sometimes they will listen to trousers, right? Remind them that they will hear the recording twice. So, okay, if you don't get it the first time, relax, try to listen again. And if you got it the first time, don't move directly to the next part. No, verify that your information is correct. In the listening part, we have as part 1, and this is the same for movers and flyers. The 3 exams are going to have the same part 1, that is about matching. And what do they have in here? Names. So first thing they have to do is take a look at the names, okay? And also, make your students become familiar with these names, because some of these names are not typical in Ecuador, right? Even though I'm pretty sure that we have Alice or Alicia, we don't say Alice, right? We say, oh, it's Alice. Eva, they don't say Eva. Eva, work on pronunciation so they know, oh, Eva. Matt, Hugo, it's not Hugo. Here we say here Hugo, but remember that the pronunciation in English is Hugo, right? So they work on that, and then they take a look at the pictures, and then you can start, like getting answers from them. Where are they? What are they doing? What are they celebrating? Oh, what's on the table? Oh, there are many things. Who is holding a camera? Who is sleeping? You see, as I told you, visual aids are magnificent because with that visual aid, I can create a whole class. And then after that, I remind them what you have to do is to match the name of the person with the correct picture that describes exactly that is that person. Now, you have to tell them that there is one option that they won't be using. They don't have to match everything, because sometimes when the students finish this activity, they say like, oh, they never mentioned Mark, and they start, thinking like, I think this is Mark, but no, they just have to match the ones that they hear. Now, another thing that they have to do in here, right? If they want to work with a ruler, why not? Let them go, like during the exam, take your pencil case with your colors, your pencil, it has to be with pencil, not with pen, your eraser, and if you want a ruler, so in that way you can make straight lines, perfect, go ahead. They could even maybe in the practice, use markers to change the colors of the lines, but in the exam, it's just pencil. And then in part 2 of the exam, we have now, again, note taking. In all the exams, the students are going to have note taking in the listening part. But obviously, the content will be different, right? Here, the students are supposed to write a number or a word. Numbers can be from 1 to 20. As I told you before, they don't need to write the numbers in letters. It is better and easier for them if they do it in numbers. And then what they have to do is, okay, when you're doing this activity, pay attention to what they're asking. Number. Here, underline, they want the number of something. The number of Lucy's house. Here, they want the name, you see? Start teaching them different kind of techniques that will be useful for them in the future, whether it is for reading or for listening, okay? So tell them to underline. They can underline in the exam, not a problem, right? Because they are doing it with pencil, that's not a problem. And then they will have to complete and also practice spelling, because in this part of the exam, they normally will hear a name or a last name. Oh, last name, that's another word, right? Last name, surname, right? In American English, we say last name, whereas in British, we say surname. Tell them that, maybe they will have the name of the street, the name of someone, or the last name of someone, and that is going to be a spell. So start practicing with them that kind of exercises, okay? There's another activity in there with live worksheets. Here, all right, here we go to the 2 last parts of the listening. Now, again, all the exams, all young learners, movers and flyers will also have this multiple choice. They will have 3 pictures, and as you can see, the pictures are kind of similar, but with some differences. Before they start listening, ask them questions about the pictures. What is the difference here? Oh, this one here in the middle, she's wearing a t-shirt. And letter C is wearing a jacket. But all the 3 of them are similar. They are the same person. They are all wearing a brown headband, etc. What about this? Where can we find this? Oh, this one we can find in our house, in our office, in our living room. And what is the difference between this and this? Now, also, this help them with their abilities for prediction, right? They start looking at the picture and they say, oh, in picture A, the camera is on the desk. Whereas in letter B, the camera is on the shelves. And then in letter C, the camera is under the chair, you see? So they already have an idea, and it's easier for them to grasp the answer, the correct answer, when they listen to them, right? Here in the next one, you have noodle, no, I don't know if it's rice and chicken. Then I have French fries. Remind them, they can hear maybe chips. They probably don't listen to French fries, and then tell them that it's confusing because When they learn in American English, chips is like, like Lay's, Artesanas, the Ruffles, right? But in British English, chips are those ones there, those French fries. So tell them to be careful with that. Burgers, okay? So what is the correct one? And then also another thing that I do with my students is I tell them to underline. Here, I need to know what is Kim wearing now, right? What is she wearing now? Kim, because probably another person is wearing something else. Where is the camera? What does Tom like? Very important to underline these words because probably they will mention, oh, Tom hates burgers, but he loves French fries. So he generally likes to have French fries with eggs. Okay, but he hates, so definitely no, because this is about what does he like. You are teaching them techniques again, underlining is one of the best techniques for reading and listening components. And finally, part 4 of the exam, also similar for all the exams, but in this one is part 4, probably in others is part 5. Here, the students will have to color according to the instructions. Now, in pre-A1 starters, they will have similar items in the picture. As you can see in this picture, what are the similar items? What is the repetitive item? Look at the part 4. What is the item that you see everywhere?
The
Very
robot.
good, the robot. That's what they need to look at. Tell them to forget about the window, to forget about the no, they need to see which is the item that is repeated everywhere because this is the one that they have to color. Do they have to color all of them? No, they have to color the ones that they listen. Again, instructions, right? They will say color, so they need to know the colors, but also they need to remember their prepositions of place. And the parts of the house, in this case, of the living room, are going to be necessary because they need to locate these robots, right? So before this, when I introduce them, I ask, where is this robot? And then people will tell me, oh, it's behind the sofa, right? And what about this one? Oh, this one is between the boy and the dog. And what about this one? Oh, this one is on the desk, okay? They learn to identify where each robot is. And in that way, it's easier for them to color them. Now, another important thing, sometimes students in this part of the test, they, in their attempt to color all beautifully, they will spend a lot of time coloring just because, they want to do it perfectly. Reminded that they are not going to be assessed on coloring skills. It's just, okay, if they color the correct item, that's it. So if they do not follow the borders, that is not a problem, right? Because what happens if they take a long time? The recording continues and then they will be delayed. They will be held back, by that. In this part, they don't have to write. It's all about colors, okay? So with that, we have completed the listening of pre-A1 starters, and we are going to end this part with the speaking. Now, remember, at this point, they just have to speak between 3 to 5 minutes. Now, remind them that opposite to the other tests, right? Like FCE, PET, CAT, they will just have one examiner. They will have to be sitting next to the examiner, like the communication is always like this. And tell them that they don't have to feel nervous, that they just have to answer every single question. Ideally, they will answer questions in phrases or long sentences, okay? Introduce them to instructions with look at this, put this here, tell me about, another could be maybe place something in a different spot, etc. Okay, and also teach them to use expressions such as sorry, I can understand, or can you repeat please? Now, very important, remind them not to speak Spanish. All these young learners, at the moment that they don't understand something, they start saying something, they start speaking Spanish, right? They say like, oh, no entiendo, ¿qué? That's a typical one, right? Tell them, no, if you don't understand, ask the examiner to repeat, can you repeat, please? Repeat, please. I'm sorry, They can even say what, no problem, okay? But it has to be in English. So here I am showing you an example of what they might see in their listening, sorry, in their speaking, okay? They will be given a big picture, right? And that big picture will be, well, the beginning is my name is Marjorie, what's your name? They tell you the names, that's it, the name. They don't need to tell you the whole name, they don't need to tell you their age, just their name. And then the examiner will show the picture to them and they will show something. For example, a typical situation is that the examiner says, so John, here is the sun. Where is the cat? So what does John have to say? Does John have to point at the cat or does he have to tell me a sentence about the cat? What do you guys think? The only thing that I asked John, I told John is like, here is the sun. Where is the cat? So I have two probabilities. John will say, this is the cat and point, or maybe John will say, the cat is behind the frog. Now, if John tells me the cat is behind the frog, as an examiner, I will assume that John is a student that is stronger than a pre-A1 starter. Because at this point, ideally, they will create long utterances, but it's not obligatory. The only thing that they have to do is exactly what I did. I pointed and then John pointed. That's all. But if they give you a whole sentence, it's even perfect. That will give you also an idea, right? Maybe this student is not really a starter. Maybe this student will be a mover because he speaks more. He has a lot of control of sentences. So that can help you decide as well. So after those questions, right, they will be given different flashcards and they will need to identify, you can see the flashcards in here, different things, okay? So I asked John, where is the dress? And then John says, this is the dress. Put the dress between the house and the tree. So then John will place the dress somewhere in here, right? So you see, they play with this, with the flashcard. They put them under, behind, on, in, etc., etc. After that, I will have some questions using still my visual aids. I will ask something like, what are these? And they will say, John will say, ducks. How many ducks are there? 3 ducks. What color is this duck? So you see, from the same image, I'm asking what they are, the color, and how many. And then I move to another part of my picture and ask John, what is this dog doing? Swimming. Perfect. The dog is swimming. Even better, right? And then I will ask the last question, probably the most difficult one at this point, and you have to prepare them for this question. Tell me about. Why? Because always the tell me about will be it will be expected, you know, that the student will generate at least 3 sentences, remember. So tell me about the bag. And then you have to tell your students, tell me, you have to give me three sentences about this, okay? So first thing that you will tell me, the bag is blue. The bag is open. There is an apple next to the bag or in front of the bag, okay? I have my 3 sentences, that's it. Tell me about. Practice with your students that one because it's typical that then they don't know, so they just give you 1 sentence and then the examiner needs to be prompting different questions for them. After that, they will look at 4 different flashcards and ask questions like, for example, what are these? French fries. And then the examiner will ask something like, do you eat French fries? Yes, I do. What is your favorite food? So from that picture, 2 more questions, okay? And then in the last part, which is probably for some students the most difficult. Why? Because at that point, they are not going to be using any visual aids anymore. It's just conversation, right? They have 3 questions, three questions generally about school, about sports, about family, something like, so, John, where do you go on the weekends? I go to the park. What is your favorite place to go on the weekends? The park. So you see, they are kind of related. 2 or 3 questions they will have. And as I said, the most difficult part is that they don't have pictures anymore. So they really need to understand what the examiner is saying. And with that, we finish the pre-A1 starters. You guys have any questions? Please let me know. Now, this is something I would like for you to take a picture. This is probably the most important part. Look at all the material that you have, the handbook, the flashcards, the word list. In the resources, you have a bunch of resources. The sample exam, now just be careful because in the sample papers, I realized that they are not completely updated. So even though they are using 2018, there's still one activity that they eliminated from movers and flyers. And sometimes you can see it there, right? You have World of Fun. Has anybody here worked with World of Fun in the past? Are you guys familiar with World of Fun? No? Have you, Heidi? Have you worked with that?
No, sorry.
Okay, so I would recommend using that website. Believe me, it's incredible. You have no idea the kind of materials that you have. As I said before, you can project them in class, or simply, you can just copy the ideas and put them in a handout. It's amazing. And you have for all these 3 levels. Also, you have some videos, that you can use as mock exams when you are preparing your students for speaking abilities, and the posters. As I told you, you can ask your coordinator or the director of your schools, because they might have to invest some money, with those posters, but they are complete, colorful, and they have, with that posters, you can work during the whole year, because there are so many things that you can see there that you will definitely make sure that you will check all of the vocabulary words the students need. So with that, we have finished with pre-A1 starters, and now we go with movers. As I said before, right? Probably I always take the longest time in the first exam because that's the foundation. But remember, movers and flyers are going to be structured in a similar way. The problem here is that now we're going to have more activities and also different content, right? Now they're going to have longer list recordings, right? Longer recordings, longer reading activities. Now the level of difficulty is higher at this point. For movers, now we can see already the first difference, right? The time. Reading and writing will take 30 minutes, and now this is divided into 6 different parts. Similar strategies, flashcards, a lot of flashcards, practice matching descriptions. At this point, students need to write more than a pre-A1 starter, right? We're talking that a movers is generally a student that is 9, 10 years of age. So they need to write more. And this student need to have knowledge of the vocabulary, not just for movers, but also for pre-A1 starters. So you can always go back, okay? Again, prompt your students to use print a script instead of joined up writing, right? It is better, it's less difficult for them. First part of the exam. Now, you remember that in the reading from starters, you have to match, to tick or cross, right? This is an apple, yes or no? So tick or cross. Now here I have definitions, but very simple definitions, right? So generally what I do with my students of movers, I create a lot of crosswords. You can see I have pasted a picture of a crossword that I use from ISL Collective, another website with a bunch of resources. And why? Because they love it. Believe me, like this is the kind of exercise that will reinforce spelling abilities, but will also, engage students because they will be so focused on finding that meaning until they completed it. You can you can tell the students, that the positive aspect of this part of the test is that they have the word and the picture. So it's easy to identify, right? And then in the definitions, they have just simple sentences, right? So for example, you eat soup out of this. You eat soup, soup out of this. Okay, so then you start looking, What do you use to eat soup? Then the students will say, maybe they get confused and they say kitchen. Now that's where you prepare the soup, right? That's where you make soup. But where do you pour your soup, right? Where do you eat it from? Oh, bowls. Okay, so I found my first one. Okay, they need to be familiar, with this kind of vocabulary. You eat, you see, you find. This is something, maybe there's a description there. You can do this. And this is where those are typical patterns that you find in this part of the exam. Now, let me see. Yes, I have shared with you this crossword. And then in part 2, we have now, you can see that right now we are exposing our students to longer text, okay? Now in part 2, you have a multiple choice. Now, what is the problem with this activity? A lot of students find it difficult because not all of the answers, remember that we are talking about this part 2, and this is also an excellent strategy for flyers because they have the same topic. Not always you're going to find a typical short answer, right? Like for example, in here, are those new shoes, Jane? Well, this is easy. I tell my students, look at the auxiliary, right? If it's short answer, you need to answer with the same auxiliary. Yes, instead of those are, because we don't answer that way. Yes, they are. So this one, it's easy. But imagine that they have something like, I don't know, let me give you an example, okay? They see something. I think that I have an activity for you here. Let me see. Let me share. It's in here, I think. This is starters, movers. Okay, I think it's this one here. Reading and writing. Just 2 seconds, please. Okay, this is the one. I found it. Can you see the live worksheet? Can you see the live worksheet? Yes, perfect. Thank you. So look at this. The level of difficulty here is greater because I, as the teacher, I need to prepare my students to certain expressions that they will use to answer. Because, you don't always answer yes or no. There are alternatives, right? If somebody asks me, Marjorie, would you like to play soccer? Would you like to play soccer, during recess? And then instead of saying yes, I can say, I'd love it. So I am teaching then an alternative. Maybe you don't hear yes, but you're going to hear like, I love it. Or maybe you can hear something like, I'm afraid I have to study. That I'm afraid is like a no. So formulaic expressions, okay? Something that I would recommend doing, even though they are not updated, if you Google material for movers, you will find some kind of books, from Cambridge, from Collins. If you want, feel free to text me. I have a bunch of material to share with you. And what I do is that I try to copy, like exercises from these books and see all the alternatives that the students might find. It's easier to expose them because then I'm going to be like kind of overwhelmed what kind of vocabulary I need to teach. You also can use, the word list. That will help you as well. But take a look at the example. Fred says, our new kitten is so funny. And then Vicky responds, do they laugh? Is it? Are those new? These are the kind of statements that are going to be difficult for movers because generally, when you say our new kitten is so funny, maybe they will say, yes, it is. They might expect an answer like that. But is it? You can teach them, like some tag endings, not all of them, reminding them that the only thing that this tag ending wants to express is like, right? Oh, really? Maybe instead of is it, or really? And you can get answers from your students. What could be another alternative for is it? Well, somebody said like, oh, really? Oh, you don't say. You don't say. That's another alternative, right? So formulaic expressions. Take a look, as I told you, to all kind of materials and then copy the alternative that you can have. But here in live worksheets, I am giving you one example, and you can find more of these that you can use in class. Because remember, they are not going to have a typical, yes, there is, no, there isn't kind of answer that they are used to, okay? So that's important to bear in mind when you are introducing this activity to your students. Now, as I said here, formulaic expressions, right? Use set expressions, not just for yes or no answers, but also answers to statements, and eliminate the ones, if the students still find it difficult, say eliminate. Look at the first one. Where did you find them? Where is place? Last week refers to place? No, eliminate. Yes, in town. Well, I have a place there, but what is the situation? Oh, remember that when you start with a question word, the answer is not yes or no, right? So eliminate that one, and that way you can find the correct answer. Now, in part 3 of the movers exam, the students will have a close exercise, right? It's actually a gap text in which they have to complete with 5 words. Now, remind them that at this point, they already need to be familiar not only with the vocabulary, but also with some reading activities, right? They have to read. Make them read paragraphs, correct pronunciation. Teach them that it would be easier to predict the gap word if they just look at the word that is before or at the word that is after, right? So if you take a look at number 1, last week our class went to a farm in the countryside for the day. It was a beautiful day. Okay, so what do we have? Day. And I have a space before. It means that I need to find a word that modifies the day. How was the day? If it's a word that modifies day, I need to look at adjectives. I need to look at verbs. Probably at that point, they won't know what is an adjective or what is a verb, but tell them characteristics, no action. So that way, eliminate all actions. Okay, I eliminate, this is an action, this is an action, this is an action, okay? So now take a look, again, countryside is gone, right? Now, this is a characteristic. Eliminate everything that is not characteristic. Eliminate the things or the people. Okay, I'm going to eliminate pencils because this is not a characteristic. This is a thing. Farmer is not a characteristic. And vegetables. And then what you have? You have your options for characteristics. You have 2 characteristics, big or sunny. Now, which one do you think that corresponds to day? And then they will say sunny, because the day, I don't know if the day is big, maybe the day is long when you are experiencing summer, or when you are in a place with the 4 seasons, but that's not our case, okay? And then also tell them that for this kind of activity, they need to find the best name for the story. So for that part, what do they have to do? They have to skim all the text and then find the main idea. Are we talking about the day of the farmer, like this is the farmer's day? Are we talking about how animals live? Remember that how is manner. And if I talk about animals, I should cover all the animals in the farm, or my experience going to the farm. Ask these questions. That will help students also developing their abilities for active reading. Eliminating is an excellent choice. They can you do it together in class, but then you're also preparing them to do it alone independently during the exam. Now, for the next part, we are going to take a look at another close practice. So again, for this one, the students need to find from an option of 3 words, which one corresponds to the gap, which one will complete the sentence. Now, for this exercise, you need to practice prepositions, the typicals in, on, at, for dates. They need to know already for dates and prepositions of place. Verbs, difference between present and past. Believe it or not, a movers student should be introduced to past. They need to know past. Probably they won't use it, with accuracy, but they need to use the simple past. They need to know also connectors. It's important. You will see in the speaking why it's important that they use connectors. They need to know but, so, or, because. So tell them to apply the same strategy as before. Take a look at the words that are before and after and try to predict the answer, okay? And then they will choose what the correct answer is. Look at number 1 when you want to know, what do you know? Well, I know I know the vowels, I know the consonants, I know the alphabet, I know numbers. So you know things, right? So you need to find a word similar to things that will match that. And then you see your options, something, look, all of these have things. This one doesn't have things, eliminate immediately because you're looking for some things, right? Things. So this is between something and nothing. Which one do you use for zero? Oh, nothing. Okay. And we're talking about zero. You want to know zero or you want to know actually like something, right? So then you say, okay, eliminate the one that doesn't correspond. Here, the correct one is something. And sometimes the kind of questions that you have to ask your students in class might sound repetitive, but believe me, it doesn't matter. The more you repeat them something, the more aware they will be about that something. So with young learners, be repetitive as much as you can. You know, they are not teenagers. Teenagers might get a little bit bored, but that's not going to be the case of your children. As long as you keep them coloring, running in class, you know, doing interactive activities, maybe pasting something with glue, they will love it. Now, the next part of the test, part 5. Now, here, as you can see, the test is becoming more and more challenging, more difficult, more demanding. Why? Because for this, first the students will have to read, and according to what they read, they will have to complete. Now, will they complete with one word? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. For this activity, they have to complete with either 1, 2, or 3 words. And where do they get the words? In the reading. There are 3 different readings, you know, like with a picture, small ones. And the only thing that they have to do is to find what is missing and copy exactly the same. They don't need to change the word. They need to write exactly what they see, okay? Now, something that you don't see that much, but it's necessary that you also teach your students, is that even though they will need to copy, you know, exact words, sometimes there is, you know, like an exercise in which they might need to paraphrase a little. Something like this, for example, maybe in the reading they see they waited for the rain to stop. And then they waited, you know, for the rain to stop to go to the station. And here you have, when it is stopped, comma, they went to the station. Something that you can tell your students is like, take a look. Here waited for what to stop? What to stop? The rain. And in here is exactly the same. When it is stopped raining, right? Now, they need to know at this point that when we use a stop doing something, we immediately generate a verb with ing. Now, this is generally for the strong students, right? A student that might have that answer correctly will show me that maybe it's prepared for a flyers, right? Remember that at this point, the students have to get between 100 and 120, right? That's what they need to score. They won't see it because this is like shields, right? But we can see that a student that is strong will have shields everywhere. That student is probably a flyers and not a movers. The knowledge of that student corresponds to a flyers instead of a movers, all right? So if you take a look at number 2, one of Tom's presents, you tell your students, what do you need to look for? Tom's present. And another thing, red. Look for something that Tom received and it was red. So then I see I got a red football. Okay, one of Tom's presents was a red football. They just have to copy that word in here. As I told you, sometimes you need to complete with 2 or 3 words, but they are together. For example, a blue sweater, that would be 3 words. You know, a blue sweater, they just have to copy that, okay? Here, please take a picture of the links that I have included for this kind of activity, because as I mentioned, this one could be a little bit demanding for the students at this point. Now we're going to move to the last part of the exam. Now, this is new. If you are using any kind of material about young learners that was published before 2018, you are not going to find this topic, because this topic corresponds to the changes that were made after 2018. This topic didn't exist before. but now the students have this topic, okay? And they do it with the aim of focusing on more writing, tasks. What are they going to have? A picture, just a picture. And then they're going to have either questions or either statements that are incomplete and they need to complete. But also, always in this activity, they will have to write 2 complete sentences. So at this point, you remember the exercise of sentence puzzle, to put the sentences in order. Now they have to write the sentence. So for this kind of activity, remind them that generally the sentences will start with there is or there are, one boy is, one girl is, a man is, or a woman is, or the children are, right? And then they just have to complete with the actions. They will have 2 examples, and then the 2 first activities are about completing, right? The boy singing on a stage is wearing a purple, and then you say, what is this? T-shirt. Okay, so here, T-shirt. One back is brown, okay? One back is brown, and one back is, this one is the other bag, pink. What is the girl in the pink trousers doing? Now, they don't have to complete everything. They can just put, what they are doing. The girl in the pink trousers, what is she doing? They can put in here, singing. And that's it. It's perfect. If they put, she is singing, even better. But the only thing that they want is singing. Where is the drum? The drum is under the stage. Now they need to know the word stage. It's part of the words that you will find in the word list for movers. And then the 2 sentences that they want to create, whatever they want, A lady or a woman is wearing a hat. Perfect sentence. There you have 1 sentence. Another sentence, a girl is writing. Perfect. That's it. And that's how they complete the activities, right? A man is wearing glasses. Some children are dancing, okay? So practice of present continuous, introduce these parts, as the beginning of your sentences, and always remind your students, whenever they are working with pictures, to ask different questions to cover what is from beginning to end, because that will fill them with vocabulary words, okay? So with that, we have checked the reading and writing for movers. As you could see, we have some activities different from the ones that corresponded to pre-A1 starters, but in general, it's very similar. Now, the listening for movers will have a duration of 25 minutes, and it will be divided in 5 parts. Again, familiarize yourself with the topics, teach your students using flashcards, different kind of vocabulary, like lexical sets. Again, focus on differences in British and American, reminding that the recording is repeated twice. And right now, the recording is going to be a bit longer than what they experience with starters, okay? The first activity, as I told you before, is exactly the same. Exactly the same. Now, what happens in here? They probably have 1 extra name that they want, they had in starters, right? An important point here, because the students from movers, at 9, 10 years old, they have a better understanding, of names, is to remind them that there are names in English that can be used either for females or for males. For example, Kim, because maybe they think that Kim is a lady, but maybe in the recording, Kim is a boy, right? Or a man. So tell them to be careful with certain names. The typicals are Kim, Alex, Tay, Pat. They could be used for men or women, okay? Again, what they have to do before they start underlining, before they listen to the recording, tell them to give you some answers about this. Where are they? What are they doing? What is the woman wearing the red dress doing? What is the man in the car doing? Okay, and this is something very important, because when the teachers don't go through the resources, when they don't go to the word list, they send students that are not prepared for the exam. And the students, the majority of them, fail at this action, not just in the reading or in the listening, but also in the speaking. Can anybody maybe write in the chat or tell me which action is this? What is the man in the car doing? This is a very important action because your movers will have this action. Does anybody know? This action is waving. Teach this action to your movers, right? You have it in the word list, but as I said, sometimes, as teachers, we are so busy, we don't really have time to go through every single part of the resources, but this is a word that most of the students have problems with. Waving. Another is meatballs. And I think that the problem with meatballs is because here in Ecuador, we don't really have a culture of eating meatballs. I mean, we eat probably bolognese. Maybe some families eat meatballs, but it's not something like I don't know, rice and seco that is typical in Ecuador. Like everybody would eat seco or locro, right? So that's another word they have problems with, meatballs, waving, right? So teach them this. Okay, what am I doing? I'm waving. Who am I waving at? Who am I waving at? At, you see, I'm not going to focus on grammar, but they already repeat, oh, the teacher used at, I'm going to use at, right? I am waving at someone, another teacher in the classroom, okay? So they know after you have introduced some vocabulary words, remind them that they need to match the corresponding name to the corresponding description. In the second part, again, they will have to complete with either words or a number. Generally, it's just one word or a number in here, but it's a little bit longer than the one that we had in pre-A1 starters. Now, at a movers level, students need to have knowledge of numbers from 1 to 100. It means that they need to know how to write 53, 92, 80. They need to know how to write them. But ideally, in order to score perfectly, tell them that they don't need to use the numbers in letters, just in numbers, okay? Now, another activity that we have for the listening. This is another new activity. As I told you, in 2018, there were certain changes made in the structure of the different young learners test. And this was another change. Before you had and you could see, in the books from the past, that you have days of the week and you have to match each day of the week with one activity. But now you're going to match activities and one person. Generally, you have family members, or the name of different people, the name of friends, and you have to match which activity correspond to each person, okay? For this activity, remind the students that they will hear, like a conversation generally between one person and another talking about something, and then they will have to eliminate the ones that they have used. For example, here they know that the parents, they went sailing somewhere, so immediately eliminate, right? If they say, another thing, they are not going to use or to hear activities or people in order. So tell them that they can talk, for example, after the parents, probably they talk about the cousin. So focus on that. I'm looking at my cousin, and my cousin, he went skating. Okay. So this one corresponds to my cousin. I'm going to put this letter in the box and I eliminate. So that way my eyes are not going to look at that activity again. This is one challenging activity for the students, especially if they are really, get distracted easily. You have to make sure that they are familiarized with the vocabulary of the different activities, with the vocabulary of family members, and any other, right? Because it could be maybe lexical sets about food, lexical sets about toys, etc., etc. And here I have another link for you to look at that. I don't know, are you guys familiar with ESL School? Have you worked with ESL School with the website? Any of you, maybe? No? You have not used that website before? Have you heard about it? No? So I'm going to show you. All right, let me see. Okay, can you guys tell me what you can see? Can you see the presentation or can you see the website?
I can see the pictures.
Yes, very good. So,
Some boys
okay,
and
look
girls.
at this. Try to
Was
include
at school.
website. It is incredible. It has different sections, you know, for different kind of topics, but a specific section for Cambridge exams for all of them, not just for young learners, you know, even for main suite as well. And you will have some practices. You can see you can use this one. Okay, so everybody is doing different kind of sports, right? We're gonna have Miss Sky, Paul, Fred, Lily, Sally, and Nick, and you can play it, you know, again, you know, use your projector, play it in the classroom, stop, because in your practice, I actually recommend stopping there and then asking questions just to make sure that the students are paying attention to you, right? Because let's be honest, listening can be a little bit, you know, boring for some students. So make sure that they are all engaged in the activity. And then, yeah, you can do this one here. And as you can see, you have more exercises available. This is an excellent page. I love using different kind of websites, you know, for my presentations and for my classes. And this one is one of the most useful ones. So that is about part 3 of the exam. Now let's go back. Part 4 and part 5, exactly the same that you saw in pre-A1 starters, right? In part 4, before your students listen to the recording, ask them differences. So you can say similarities, they are the same woman, but they are wearing different kind of clothes. This one is wearing jeans, and it seems like this one is wearing a skirt, a red skirt. Now, this one is also wearing jeans, but what is the difference? So the difference is that this one has short hair. So before they read, go through all these different differences, okay? Now, here we have different kinds of transportation. Here we have a bus, and here we have a bicycle, whereas in here we have, again, a bicycle, but this one is a train. And in here we again have a train, but the man is walking. So this could be a good opportunity for introducing the grammar of by plus transportation, by car, by plane, by bus, by taxi, but on foot, right? I walk, I go on foot. That would be an excellent opportunity to introduce your students, as I said, with using the visual aid, all right? And then the last part, it's about coloring. But now there is a change, okay? What is the change? That now the students will have to write something. It's not just about coloring. And another important thing is that now they don't have a repeated item. Do you remember in Started, there was something that was everywhere, the robot. But here, well, I have a panda, I have a lizard, I have a lady carrying a basket, another word for your students, basket, or it looks like a basket. Maybe it's a bag. We have a little sheep here. We have a bird, we have clouds, okay? And here you have an example, right? Lake. See, generally the words that you are going to write are not long, you know, and they are part of the word list for this level, right? So what are the students going to do? Probably they say, color the lizard on the rock green. So they are going to color their lizard green, and then they might say something, you know, write on the big mountain something, right? Like maybe they say, okay, write the word forest. Okay, they know forest and they have to write it there, you know, on the big mountain. So for this kind of activities, reminded that for both for movers and flyers, they will have not only to color, but also to write. With that, we have finished the listening component of the movers. And now we move to the speaking, okay? Do you remember that in the speaking for starters, you had one big picture, right? One big picture and a set of 8 flashcards. In the one for movers, well, we're going to have the same format, one examiner, one student, but now we're going to have a longer exam. It will last from 5 to 7 minutes. And look at this, practice activities in which students need to compare and contrast using this structure. Very important. For speaking, I'm going to teach my students, give 2 pictures and say, here, da 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 da, but here, or but there something is different, okay? And also they will have a story picture. I don't know if you remember, if you probably my gosh, I forgot, Alejandra. I think that you were in our KET training. You remember that in the writing we have a story picture. Now in here, in the speaking, they will have the story picture. Obviously differently, with colors, not like the one that they will find in KET, okay? And sequencers. Introduce your students to first. So when I get up, okay, first I get up, then I take a shower. After that, I get dressed. So you see, I am teaching sequencers first, later, after, finally. Here I have summarized the different activities that a mover student has on the speaking exam. The first activity is this one. So what do they have to do? They will have to say, the differences between the pictures. For example, here the doctor is standing up. But here, and pointing, but here the doctor is sitting down. Here there is a computer on the table, but here there is a phone. So you see, at this point, my mover students, they need to create sentences and compare, something that starters didn't need to do. But here it's obligatory, that kind of sentence. Here there is la la la, but here there is la la la. Another difference, right? Here, the boy has an earache, or maybe a toothache, it's not that clear. But here, the boy has a stomach ache. My gosh, they need to know illnesses too, symptoms. So you will find all of that in the word list. And I'm pretty sure that the material that you use with your class will cover all of this vocabulary as well. So generally, they have 5 differences, and it's all about here, but here, okay? And then they move to topic number 2. Topic number 2 is the story. This is the story. The story starts with an introduction for the examiner. The examiner will say something like, on a beautiful Saturday, John and his mother decided to take his dog for a walk. Now, look at the rest of the pictures and you tell the story. So they have the beginning, then they have to continue, right? And then they will say, then it's ideally, because remember that the examiner will introduce the first picture. So the students don't need to repeat it. It's unnecessary. They don't need to repeat the first picture because the examiner, that was the example of the examiner. So tell your students to start from number 2. Or if they want to repeat, they can do it, right? It's unnecessary though. Then Joe took his dog to the park. And after that, the dog stopped to check a bag. Later, John brought the bag home. And the mother found a piece of paper. So something like that. They have to come up with their creativity. The idea is that they go through every single picture, at least with one sentence, using first, then, after that, finally, and then all the stories generally finish with everybody was happy. Right? So tell your students, finish the story. Finally, John found his football in the box and he and his dog were very happy. You see, that's the story. But it's all about sentences and connectors. And, but, after, finally. So they need to know all of this. So when you practice these kind of exercises, you can do exercises about putting the stories in the pictures in the correct place and then matching them, with the corresponding sentences. And then they can look at the structure of the sentence, right? And then try to memorize in order to create other sentences. Oh, I'm going to use first this, after that, and then I'm going to finish always with, they were very happy, okay? Then in part number 3 of the speaking for movers, the students will have 4 pictures. One is different, right? What they have to do is to tell you which one is different and why. For example, here the book is different. Because, use of because, a lemon, a pineapple, and an orange are fruit. The book is not a fruit. Then you go to the next picture and you say, this is different. Why? Because here, and then tell them, don't get stressed if you don't know certain things. Just point and say, here, here, here. That's it, right? Because here, here, and here, they are cooking. But here, the person is studying. That's it. And they finish the activity. And then the last part, it's about the discussion. The most difficult part, because at this point, the students won't see any pictures. The examiner will close the booklet, will look at the student, and will start. And believe me, sometimes the students cannot answer these questions. They don't understand. So practice without looking at anything. Practice. Tell me about your mother or father. Again, oh, my father is Vincent. He is 75 years old. He lives in the United States. That's it. Again, remind them that whenever they listen to tell me, to create at least 3 sentences, okay? To look at the examiner and not to feel nervous, okay? And with that, we finish the movers. And finally, and just with 20 minutes left, we are going to take a look. Oh, please take a picture of the materials from movers. You can see that is similar. You have a bunch of materials, another activity, other activities, but very similar to the ones for starters. It's just that these ones are for movers. The handbook, you will find that it's the same, and you will find in a handbook divided for each of the exams, okay? So now, the last exam from your young learners, and the most difficult one, of course, is the flyers. Reading and writing for 40 minutes, similar strategies, right? Similar activities, but now with more focus on vocabulary, grammar, and functional language. At this point, the student should know certain collocations. The typical ones: put on your clothes, do your homework, not make your homework, you do your homework, have lunch, right? A typical one is the students, because in Spanish we say tomar café, they might think like take coffee. No, 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 we don't say that, right? We say drink coffee. We normally drink coffee. All right, so similar activities as the one in movers, but now the level of difficulty is higher. In part 1 of the reading and writing, they have to match, but now there are no pictures. It becomes more difficult because I have no pictures. It means that the students, they need to know the meaning of all the words that they have on the side. They need to know what is a fork. They need to know what is a spoon. They need to know what is an envelope. This is why I always say, look at the word list, because there are words that you might say like, oh my gosh, I forgot to teach my students this word, and that's the word that they had in the exam, right? So what are they going to do? Look at the definition. Crosswords, again, excellent practice for this topic. Look at the definition and then find the correct word, right? Here, for example, we put a letter or a card in that before we post it. Maybe these students, they have never used a letter, right? Teach them, bring an envelope to your class and teach. What do we put in an envelope? Oh, normally we put a letter or a card, right? Part 2, it's about matching, but now you can see that there's a difference. In the previous exams, we were talking about multiple choice from an option, from a 3 option, right? You have A, B, or C. But now you're going to have 8 different alternatives, and you will have to see which is the corresponding letter that will continue the dialogue. So what is important at this point, when you are practicing this kind of task, tell your students to underline. As I told you before, what kind of information are they looking for? What's your favorite food? Helen, oh, favorite food. I need to look at something that is about food. Here I see vegetables, but it says my dad. So no, it's about me, Helen. It's cheese. Oh, I already found it, because the others, they don't talk about food, right? So I put here B. The next one, who? Who? This is the most important. Who cooks your lunch? Who? Oh, okay, I need to look for a person, but letter A, I have a person, my dad. but it's not about your dad growing vegetables. It's about who is cooking your lunch. So then you can say, oh, okay, I need to look for another person. I found it. It's E, my sister. So you see, this is what you do. It's easier when you tell your students to underline specific words and then just look at the answer of that word. It's easier for them to recognize words than recognize whole utterances. All right, so part 3 of the exam, we go with, again, more difficult exercises. Now we have 2 close exercises, but more difficult. Why? Because my texts are longer. And even though, the students haven't read, just the fact that you expose them to these long texts, make them immediately get kind of overwhelmed. Your students are like, oh my gosh, I need to read all of this. So strategies for close, that's something that we have been checking for a while. Look at the whole text first and try to predict the answers, okay? Here I have put a link for you, live worksheets, an excellent activity for you to practice with your students in class. And then the other topic, that is the open close, is similar. Sorry, it's not the open close, it's the multiple choice close. It's similar. You will have to choose which of the words is correct. Now, this topic here, it's more related to grammar, right? Like, what is the difference between, okay, this one is easy. His is for men and her is for woman. But what is the difference between this one? You can talk about this in class, and then your students say, is it correct that I say, I like her blouse or I like hers blouse? Ah, this one, that doesn't sound correctly. But why? Because hers have blouse included, right? You're going to use hers when the noun is included in that. So you can use this activity to introduce different grammar topics in your class, okay? Now, so this is about topics 3 and 4. Now 5 and 6, okay? Now remember that here in flyers, they will have 7 parts in the reading. So it's long, right? It's 40 minutes. Here, similar to movers, you will have a text. Now the text is longer. And according to the text, you will have to complete with either 1, 2, 3 or 4 words, from 1 to 4 words. Where do you find the words? In the text, right? So tell your students to focus on specific words, right? The boys play with a. Okay, I don't know what would they play with, but I'm going to look at the word play. Oh, here, I found, teacher, I found it. Play with a, and then make a castle with some sand. Okay, they play football on the beach, and they play. So if they play football, what did they use to play football? A football. It's exactly the same, the name of the sport and the name of the ball. So they play with a football. All right, so then I found that, okay? Tell them to look for specific words. The words that are before or after the gap will help them recognize what do they need to use to complete. And then the next topic, probably difficult for some students, because if they don't have options, they freak out. They will have their first ever open close activity, which will prepare them for CAT, PET, FCE in the future. They will have to complete with 1 word, and they don't have options. They have to think which word is the correct. So we are having a great time on this holiday. Today we've been visit the pyramids. What is the word in number 1? We've been. Oh, I remember that when my teacher taught me the present perfect, they need to know present perfect here. I remember that she put a lot of sentences with this. I've been to Europe, I've been to the park, I've been to the jungle, etc., etc. So I think that it might be 2. We've been to visit the pyramids, okay? So I think that this is a typical collocation, being to a place, and remind them, they don't say, they can say gone to, we have gone to, if the person is still there. If the person is not there, right? I can never say I have gone to Europe because I am here in Ecuador right now. I am not in Europe. The only time that I use somebody has gone to a place is when that person is in that place and not here. So you can explain that to your students, right? Here, I have also given you a link from ESL School where you can see different exercises related to this part of the test. And finally, the new and last part of the test. Again, this is something that was included in the test in 2018. Now, their first open writing activity. They will have pictures and they will have to create a story. The story should have at least 20 words, but it could have more, 30, 40 words. Reminding, the more words, the more mistakes. So the only important is that they take a look at all the activities. Okay, where are they? Okay, they are in space. And who are they? An alien and an astronaut. What are they doing? They are holding hands. Then in picture number 2, they can include, quotation marks with expressions about, the alien said to the astronaut this, this, and that. The alien asked something to the astronaut regarding food, right? They are not going to know regarding at this point, but I'm just giving you an example, right? What are they doing? He's inviting the astronaut for lunch. Then I think they are at the house of the alien, right? And they are having lunch together and they are all happy. Here I am giving you an example of a writing activity. If you want, you can take a picture of the example and then base your future examples to that, right? One day, la, la, la. Now, the story, will it be in present or in past? The students will decide. If they feel more comfortable writing in present, do it in present. If they feel more comfortable writing in past, do it in past, okay? The important is that they complete all the activities or the most important activities in each picture, right? So you can see they meet in the NASA station while he was checking the place. He met a friendly alien. The alien, it asked John, would you like to have lunch? John said yes, because he was so hungry. They had a sandwich and juice. John and the alien became good friends. That's all. That's all that a student is supposed to produce at this level, okay? And also here you have a link from World of Fun, so you can check more activities there. Listening. The listening for flyers has a duration of about 25 minutes, and it's divided in 5 parts. Very, very similar to the movers activity. The first exercise, it's about matching names with the description, and the other, it's about completing. Now, here they will have phone numbers that are longer. Maybe they will have to complete, with more than one word sometimes, maybe a sweater, right? 2 words, like a sweater, but generally it's just one. Now, something extremely important for this part of the test. Introduce your students to telling the time in both forms. What time is it? It is 5:50 or 10 to 6. Introduce your students to 2 forms. Create clocks, with cardboard in your class, and play games about telling the time, because in this part of the test, they will listen to time. And sometimes the time is normal, it's 4:30, but sometimes it's the other form, is 4:30. And your students need to be familiar with both forms. So very important. That is something that you need to remember for part 2 of the listening and all the tests, of flyers. Then you have part 3. Now part 3, again, similar to movers, you have to match the activity, in this case, the picture, to the corresponding person, okay? Remember that at the moment that you match, you have to eliminate the option that you have chosen, so it doesn't get confusing. Part 4, again, okay, similarities. We have 3 men. But what are differences? Well, I think that he's going to the office. It seems to me that maybe he's an electrician or a plumber. And here I cannot take a look, but maybe this is the director of a school, or I don't know, or a doctor maybe. I am not so sure about that, okay? Then in here we have different kinds of transportation. This one here looks like a truck, and then this one, it's a plane, and then this one is a factory. No, this is a farm. Probably this is, I don't know, like the airport, and this is a factory. So Always take a look at the different pictures, talk about similarities, talk about differences, and then play the recording. And finally, the coloring activity. Again, you know what you have to do. Do you have something that is repetitive here? No, it was just in starters. In movers and flyers, they can make you color anything. They can make you color the windows. They can make you color the boat. They can make you color the trees, anything. And at this point, you will have to write a word. Take a look at your word list because the words in here sometimes are spelled and the students need to grab that spelling correctly, okay? Words like sharpener, words like notebook, you know, those are the typical words that you might find in here. All right, so very similar to movers. And finally, and just with 10 minutes to finish, Jesus Christ, we have the speaking, okay? Now, the speaking of flyers obviously is going to be longer. It lasts from 7 to 9 minutes. And in here, we're going to have new activities. Again, we're going to compare, but now instead of here, but here, the student needs to create a whole sentence. I will give you an example. Also, very important for the speaking and for all the parts of the test of flyers. Your students need to know how to create WH questions. A typical mistake in this, and the reason why some students don't get the 5 shields in speaking is because they cannot create a good sentence. For example, they say, where you went last night. That's a typical one. It means that they don't know the correct structure. Where did you go? Use activities with cardboard, you know, like sentence puzzles. Make your students, okay, put the question in the correct, each part of the question in the correct order and jumble the sentence. And then that way they can see, okay, there's a do, there's a does, there's a did, because that is the part of this test in which the students fail the most. All right, so topics for speaking, you have the first one that is comparing. But now the examiner will say something and the student will have to create a sentence similar with the difference. I'll give you an example. In this picture, the bicycle is orange. That's my sentence. In this picture, the bicycle is orange. The student has to say, but in this picture, the bicycle is yellow. You see, now the student is giving me a similar statement, long, but it's still a contrast. Whereas in mover is here is black, but here is blue. It was very short. Now work with your students in different ways that they can retain sentences, long sentences they need to retain. And sometimes they don't know, but they can just repeat, right? Like, oh, they don't remember the color. But here, the bicycle is not orange. Okay, they answered the question, right? Here, the woman is wearing, in my picture, the woman is wearing sunglasses. But in my picture, the woman isn't wearing sunglasses. That's what they need to do. Exactly emulating the examiner, okay? In this picture, let me see another difference. In this picture, the bird is on the edge. Well, I don't think that they will know the edge, but they might say something, you know, like in this picture, the bird is about to fly, but in this picture, the bird is not about to fly. In this picture, there is a camel in the rock, but in this picture, there is a spider in the rock, okay? So long sentences. Second topic, and this is the topic in which most of the students fail in flyers. They will have to ask questions. First, answer questions from the teacher and then ask questions to the teacher, to the examiner, right? About information that they have in here, right? They talk about something. For example, we can say that Jill and Nick both have a favorite teacher. I don't know anything about Jill's favorite teacher, but you do. So I asked you some questions. What is Jill's favorite teacher's name? It's Mr. May. What subject does the teacher teach? What subject does the teacher, does Jill's favorite teacher teach? They need to create sentences like that. What is his hobby or her hobby? It's a woman. Where does he live? So practice a lot of exercises with this question, because examiners hear a lot of where he lives instead of where does he live. And sometimes the questions are in past, okay? Does he have long or short hair? So look, at this point, they need to recognize they don't have the question words. They have some question words, but not all of them. So they need to know, oh, how do I ask for the name? How do I ask about long or short hair? All of that they need to know. So try to practice the most, because if you see topic number 1 and topic number 3 are similar to movers, right? Comparing a story. Now the story is a bit longer, but it's exactly the same. Use sequencers, finish the story at the end. They were all happy. Talk about the weather. It was raining. They were carrying an umbrella. And the last part of the test, again, the discussion, looking at the teacher, no pictures, at least 3 sentences in the tell me about. All right. They don't need to answer in complete form at this point, but ideally, they should produce a whole sentence, okay? And right now, I am going to show you. Give me one sec. Okay, let me erase all of this. Please take a picture of the materials and the resources from flyers. All right, did you take the picture? And with that, we have finished every part of the exam, okay? Again, I am sharing with you, my information. That's my email address and that's my telephone number.